the world to start a nucleus in each place of people training people rapidly. So that as public opinion changes, we can kick into gear in every country.
Do we have hubs in Canada?
No.
What do we need to do to start hubs in Canada?
You need one determined entrepreneurial person.
And then what do they do?
Just get working with us, get building it together. What we're trying to do is not say there's one size fits all. Some countries they'll have to be non-profits, other they'll be profits. One country where we've got a lot of trained, educated people, they've kept saying to me they want to start a learning hub there, and will we give them money, will we give them money? And in frustration, I sent them a message a short while ago, and I said, if I had $1 million and sent it to you, I guarantee your failure. Because none of you have got the guts, the determination, the caring for your country deep enough to be entrepreneurial and get it going. And one of the people we had from Turkey the other day, he'd come all the way from Turkey and he's already getting a hub going. We had one person at our conference in Boulder the other day, I could have cried. Young Japanese girl, left university and flew all the way to Boulder on her own dime because she saw that TED talk. When you care enough, you do what you want to. We have many Canadians already practicing. None, one, Lake Holtman, one came down to Boulder. You Canadians need to get off your backsides. I don't know how to put it more bluntly, and I'm doing that to be kind.
Questions from the audience?
I'm having a little bit of a...
Stand up, I can't quite hear you.
Well, it's going to help.
Yeah, it will, it will. Yeah.
Yeah, now it's coming down.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm having a little bit of a problem understanding the cropland, grassland. I think there's... What you're suggesting is that by growing crops, that we're doing more damage than good.
No, no.
So the question is that there's a problem with interpreting the difference between the cropland and integrating it with the grassland. Give us an understanding of that.
No, thank you for clearing that. We've got to grow crops, all right? But what we're learning, and we're learning this in human health, in all sorts of things, the closer we can get to mimicking nature, the more likely it is to work. And where we've had massive monoculture crops, masses of the soil exposed most of the earth, it's not working. So some incredible work is going on. I mentioned at dinner last night that you might look at some of the work in Australia where people are growing the grain crops now straight into perennial grassland. They're getting a lower yield, but at a much lower cost. And they're getting far greater yield off that land of livestock and crop. So there are things that we can do. It's very important for you to know that about 6 months ago, I got the opportunity of doing a policy course in my own country for 35 members of parliament. Okay, these are from two warring parties that are killing each other, far more violent than anything we've got here. When I went to do that policy workshop, our staff pleaded with me not to touch agriculture and land, because it's the most dysfunctional policy in the country, right? And I said, don't you worry about what I'm going to do. With that 35 members of parliament, with a bad atmosphere there, I started by running through this stuff with them, and then I said, I want to remind you of a speech made by Mugabe, who is, you know, a much vilified man today, rightly so in many ways. But at a time when he was trying to govern well after the end of the war, he made a speech in which he said, we do not have a bigger problem than our rising population and our deteriorating environment. And he said, we politicians do not know what to do. We can only take the advice of our professional advisors, but when it goes wrong, we get the blame. They never do. So I reminded them that speech. And I said, now I'm dealing with you as lawmakers. I talked about policy and said, let us see if we can do a rough workout of the structure of an agricultural land policy for our country. But before we can do anything, we need a context. So we defined a national holistic context. remember, that's a totally new concept to humanity. The moment we had that, the entire atmosphere changed. Everything just soared above politics, soared above special interest groups. Anybody who had raised anything like that would have looked stupid, and it was just Zimbabweans working together. And by the end of the workshop, we had a policy that the world dreams of. We'd be the first country in the world producing more food than eroding soil. Our rivers would be healing. One of the things that interesting that came out of it was government revenues would greatly increase, costs of obtaining those would decrease. We'd become an exporting country again. But an interesting thing was all third-party endorsements, like sustainable, organic, would become redundant. Why? Because all food would be clean, healthy, grown on regenerating soils. And all of the knowledge to do that, we had right there.
Now, what's
And
happened?
you have it in Canada.
And what happened from there? It was a nice talk and everybody went home? Or?
No, two reactions. One immediate mixture of sadness and anger. They said, nobody has ever explained this so simply and how it can be done. Why haven't our universities, why haven't consultants, international agencies? So they were angry. The second was, we need to repeat this at cabinet level, so we're setting that up. Elections are on this month. When the dust settles, if we have a government, we'll redo it at cabinet level.
Other questions? Yes, Fawn. So the question was, he wants to know about the wedge between government and the environment? Agriculture and the environment. Is there the wedge that's between that? Discuss that.
Well, I don't know what you mean by wedge. We've got to produce food. We've got to have agriculture. I mean, it's vital. I wasn't talking with two tongues. I was just, as you said, pointing out that at the moment, the way we're doing it isn't right. But we have the knowledge to do it right if we address what was causing the problem, which was reductionist management. Now, the moment we're managing holistically right across the board, I honestly believe agriculture will become a powerful force for correcting climate change, and particularly the only thing that I know of that we can deal with the big problems that have nothing to do with climate change. The poverty, the violence, the increasing wars over water, the floods, the droughts. This is all happening not due to climate change, it's happening because of agriculture. So I don't know what you mean by wedge. All I know is we have to start managing holistically.
Well, I think Fawn was meaning that at times we're seen in agriculture as doing things that are opposed to the environment.
Absolutely.
And the environment is suggesting things that are opposed to proper business practices. How can we be like the Zimbabwe organization and come together as two opposing channels? Is that correct?
Yeah, we're not going to solve this in any group. I am on advisory board of the Capital Institute in New York and trying to work with people that are working on global finance, economy, etc. And we're realizing we have to get all of us together. We're in this boat together. We cannot go on with these divided conferences and things. Just take one thing: biodiversity loss, desertification, climate change. Those are taught as different subjects. They're treated as different issues in universities. They have different organizations, different conferences. Now, without biodiversity loss, desertification doesn't occur. So you've got a whole division here that's only a symptom of that one. And without addressing desertification, you can't stop climate change. So these are one subject, and we can't even get together in one conference. So we have no hope of solving that. This is the point Saul was making, which is so powerful. So I don't have answers. I'm trying to work with people in Europe to get a solutions conference where we get financiers, economists, people in agriculture, etc., together and start together working out solutions. And all we would bring to that table is no area of expertise. I don't know anything like you know about livestock. I don't know a lot about wildlife management because I've been taken off it for so much of my life into other issues. All I do know is through these struggles that we've had, we have been able to work out how people can manage holistically and begin pulling together. And I just pray for that to happen in my lifetime.
Terry?
We hear a lot today about social license and the idea in the livestock industry and the idea of building trust. I wonder what you think of the concept of social license today and how we're dealing with it. And what have you learned about building trust?
Did you hear the question?
Not fully.
We hear a lot about social license today and building trust. What have you learned about building trust, and how do we go about building trust between various parties?
Again, I don't know the answer to that. I do know, and Gibbs wrote this long ago, that without trust, you don't have meaningful communication. And if we can't communicate, we can't solve these problems. So building trust is absolutely critical to communication. What I can tell you is that this concept, this new concept of a holistic context, is very powerful at getting beyond barriers and conflict and getting people together. Whether that can keep them trusting one another, I don't know. But I've had some dramatic examples working with people, including in India with very rigid caste system and with different religions, where it's amazing when for the village or the community we define that holistic context, how people pull together. Most people just do not realize we're all wanting the same thing. It is our different objectives that lead us into conflict and war. The first time I ever used a national holistic context back in my own country at the end of a long, bitter war, there was just hushed silence. And the first person to talk, his exact words were, "Christ, if we'd only known, we wouldn't have fought the war." And we'd just killed 30,000 people. And we had no idea we all wanted the same thing.
Dick?
This is not so much a question for Allan, but for Alma. There are a lot of mavericks in Alberta in the livestock industry. I'd like to hear whether Alma will spearhead the first Canadian hub for this type of